Welcome back to He's a Giant, a pod about all things college football and all things Giants football. I am your host, Sal, here with my co-host, Monty. Oops, sorry about that. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Well, not so good. The Giants are awful. But hey, we get to talk college football, and college football is always fun. That
Co-
helps me make you feel better about the Giants being bad.
College football is always fun, and this is what we do to make sure that we don't have to think about the Giants all week. We have a whole couple of days of college football to think about, not have to worry about the Giants, and I appreciate that. And that's what makes our pod special, right? You can
Yeah,
enjoy you can enjoy good football. So that's our
exactly.
that's so let's today we're gonna talk a little Giant stuff. Welcome to everybody who's joining, and we'll let people filter in. But we're gonna talk some Giant stuff, go over week one. But the meat and potatoes of our episode is going to be preview of the running back class of the 2025 upcoming NFL draft.
Yep.
So before we get into the running backs, Monty, week one is in the books. The Giants hosted the Minnesota Vikings in their ballyhooed 100th anniversary game at home, wearing those beautiful uniforms that they designed.
Yeah.
Walked in, everything on the line. Let's set the stage 2 days before the game in Brazil. Saquon Barkley, newest Eagle, goes completely bananas. Has like 100, I forgot how many yards he had, like 120, like all-purpose yards, 130, something like that. Three
Three
touchdowns,
touchdowns.
goes
Yeah.
nuts. John Maris throwing chairs, going nuts, and we're all talking about it, saying, all right, as long as the Giants win on Sunday,
Got to do their
they'll be
part.
okay. But they got to win. They walk into that big game in Minnesota, all the Giants legends in attendance: Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, Eli Manning, you name it, everybody except for Strand, who's in the studio. And they start the game well. They on defense, they have a tackle for like a stop on the run. Dexter Lawrence bursts through the middle of the line, gets a sack, and on the next play, Andrew Phillips, who we criticized, um, and what we can, for his tackling ability, comes up with a big
Yep.
stick, and knocks the ball loose, causes a fumble on a great tackle. Bobby Okereke picks it up at the 20-yard line of the Minnesota Vikings, and the Giants offense gets on the field. The crowd is going crazy, and they go three and out, essentially, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe I don't think they got a first down. I can't even remember, but
I don't remember.
they settled for a field goal, and that was that. So the rest is history. The Giants get an ass whooping after that. Sam Darnold walks them down over and over again. They can't do anything on offense. Daniel Jones looks completely awful. That's been the story of the week. Daniel Jones looks like he doesn't belong on the football field, and the Giants get dog walked 28-6 at home. Rough, but
Real bad.
rough, rough, rough. It's been ugly in the Giants world since then. But tell me your thoughts on the game, and let's just go from there.
I mean, man, it was the worst possible scenario as far as the quarterback situation goes. There's always this underlying fear we had where, we don't know who Daniel Jones is coming off an injury. Like we know he's not a good quarterback. That was clear. He was never a good quarterback, but we saw a world where, we're stuck in this QB purgatory as probably the best case scenario, and he's doing just enough to be a bridge quarterback, and they're figuring out in the meantime. And then there's the other side of it, going to the complete other end, is we saw Daniel Jones coming off that second neck injury, and he didn't look like he could throw a football in that Raiders game. And then we saw him in that Texans game, and he still didn't look like he could throw a football. And then we finally saw him, we got shortened time in the Raiders game. We got shortened time months and months later in a Texans game. We finally saw him over a full course of a game, and all we saw was 4 quarters of him not being able to throw a football well. The ball looks different coming off his hands, and I mean that in a bad way, than it
Yeah,
has in the past. His mechanics are fucked up. Like, we all knew he was messed up mentally. Like, that's like, we started to see that last year. Like, he was never great with all that processing and pocket presence, but it seems like that's got amplified over time. That's still there, and he just also is mechanically fucked up. So, we're looking at a situation where I felt, Daniel Jones was probably like at his best around 15 to 20 quarterback in the NFL, and probably more often is around like 25 to 32. At worst, he's a top 50 quarterback. I don't think he's a top 50 quarterback anymore. I think he's a clear at that game. I mean, we'll see. Maybe that was an outlier, but we've seen this 3 times now. Just it doesn't look like throw a football well anymore. And he looks like he's a clear tier below like those high end backup, low end starters. It is bad right now.
It was bad. And I mean, I've been critical of Jones, as everybody knows, for the last few years. I've always rooted for the guy. I definitely threw my remote the day they drafted him. It was really a frustrating day, but I rooted for the kid. Obviously, his rookie season, we all had something to be a little bit excited for.
Hmm.
Showed some juice as a quarterback, even though he had a lot of turnovers and there were a lot of red flags, but at least you saw something, And then it's been all downhill since then, unfortunately, except for, um, you can argue the 22 season when he got after he got paid. He was the best version of himself, but very conservative, game manager type quarterback at that point with good legs, to use as a weapon. But man, it's
Wasn't
been really
sustainable.
bad. Right. It wasn't sustainable. Um, Offense on training wheels. We've
Hmm.
discussed that so many times already, but he has just gotten worse and worse and worse. And I don't know if it's from the injuries or not, but it's hard to imagine that there's no impact from these multiple neck injuries and the ACL.
Those are
He
serious
does.
injuries.
He doesn't even look like a shell of his best self, which was not that great to begin with,
Yeah.
I mean, he looks completely lost out there. He looks physically lost out there. So
Mhm.
I don't know what to say other than this was always like this was not an outlier outcome, right? Coming after his injuries last year, this was not an outlier outcome of how Daniel Jones would play. Even though it's just 1 week sample, we got to see what he does. This is something that everybody talked about when he got his ACL torn and he was injured for the second time last year. This guy may never be good again even if he plays again. You cannot go into the 2024 season with him as your primary option without a backup plan that's reasonable. And we all assumed it would be either a rookie quarterback or a really good, high end backup quarterback, and we have neither. The quarterback room leaves a lot to be desired. Drew Lock is our primary backup. He has not had any run with the ones since training camp.
Nope.
Um, Tommy DeVito, not going to go into that too much, but that's our quarterback room. That's the way Joe Shane wanted it, I guess, and that's what he's given us. So that's where the
Yep.
Giants are. So, I mean, unless Daniel Jones miraculously turns it around, they are staring down the barrel of a nasty looking season of quarterback play. So
And
that's where we are.
one thing I'll add on to some people have kind of brought up, and it seems like we brought in Joe Shane and Brian Dable, and one of the biggest selling points, one of my favorite parts about these guys were, these were two guys that were on the same page, and two guys who you kind of needed two guys on the same page when you're dealing with a meddling owner like John Mara. But all the moves that Joe Shane doesn't seem to line up with what Brian Dable is doing on the field. I mean, you heard all offseason that I did never really believed it because we hear this every offseason that we're going to finally open up this offense and they were going to let it loose and things like that. But it wasn't even that of past years where Brian Dable tries it, fails, and resorts. We never even tried opening it up. He did not trust Daniel Jones one bit versus Brian Flores. He had no interest in testing Brian Flores with Daniel Jones. I don't think he has as much trust as maybe Joe Shane has in him or John Mara or whoever you want to say it is. There doesn't seem aligned. Jalen Hyatt is, after spending all that draft capital, is wide receiver 4, which for the record, people with that, like, this is why we were saying to trade Darius Slayton. Because if you're sitting here and surprised that Jalen Hyatt being wide receiver 4 is only getting 12 reps, that's what wide receiver 4s get. That's how many reps wide receiver 4s get. Go look around the NFL. It is
Right.
very rare that they get more than that amount of reps. That's what they get. So if you
Yeah.
want Jalen Hyatt to get reps, he's got to be either wide receiver 3 or Darius Slayton's got to be out of here.
We could spend hours, and we will, talking about the overall direction that Joe
Mm-hmm.
Shane has put the Giants on. I will just say that I think you and I and several of the people that we talk to frequently on this forum and others have predicted this and said, you don't want to end up here. You have a chance to pivot. We started this last year around. I started it halftime of week 2. Um, you have a chance to pivot. You can change your timeline. You can change the general approach of this organization, of where this team is going. They chose not to. They chose to continue down the same path. They did not do anything to buttress their quarterback situation, not even on the backup front. And it looks like for the second season in a row, it's going to be the thing that drags the rest of the team down quite a bit. It's not the only problem on the team, but boy, is it a bad one. And it looks like the team is beginning to be in shambles already. I mean, guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, getting snippy with the media. These are usually media savvy guys.
Hmm.
After week 1, people burning down Daniel Jones' jersey in the parking lot and basically staying late to harass the guy. It's getting ugly. It's
Yeah.
week one, and things look like they're falling apart. This is bad. Um, I'm sure John Mara threw quite a few chairs this weekend, and
Yeah.
it looked ugly. Did you hear the comment that Carl Banks said that Lawrence Taylor made to him?
Yeah. That was a funny one. It was like, what, we can get 22 of us out here and we can beat the Vikings right now.
No, the Giants. I
Giants?
think he
Yeah,
meant the
whatever.
Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and he meant Lawrence Taylor barely watches football anymore, and he was watching the Giants play, and he was like, "We can get 22 of us, or like 50 and over, and beat these guys." Like, it was an ugly scene.
Hmm.
It's interesting. I listened to a lot of the more popular and some of my favorite Giant pods this week since the game, and I heard a whole lot of various stages of grief
Yeah.
coming from those guys, and they were like, "How could this be happening?" Like, how could they do this to us? How can they give us this quarterback room? How can they sell us on Daniel Jones if he was this bad? And I can't believe it got this bad, and I can't believe. And I feel like we we were told we were crazy when we were like, "Hey, avoid the situation, draft a quarterback. Avoid the
We
situation, draft a quarterback."
we hit this stage of grief after the draft when we realized, oh, this is going to be our quarterback room. You fucked up in free agency, and then you fucked up in the draft, and now it's coming around. And it
Like,
was like, you're just mad about JJ. No, I'm mad about the quarterback room, and they could have done more if they weren't going to do it in the draft.
how different would the fan base be feeling and the energy around the team be right now if JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr. was sitting on the bench? And I realize JJ got hurt now, but he wasn't hurt then. He got hurt in camp in
the
Minnesota.
the
So
chances that happens again in New York is like there's no
I mean,
relation.
I mean, who knows, right? But the
Yeah.
point is, like, if you had JJ or you had Michael Penix Jr. sitting on the bench, and you saw Daniel Jones put up a stinker, nobody would be melting down about the state of the Giants or the future of the team. What they'd be saying is, get this fucker off the team, like, get him, put him on the bench and put the kid
Mhm.
in. The people would be screaming, put the kid in. And then the discussion would be from people who are like, just get him in because I don't want to see Jones's face anymore. And people maybe like me, maybe like you and some others who'd say, no, no, no. We're not going to ruin this kid because Daniel Jones can't win football games. There should be
Mhm.
3 quarterbacks on the roster. Put the other guy in. But let the kid develop and be ready. But the point is that there would be a real level of optimism, like, hey, it's time to move on. And whenever it's ready to happen, whenever that kid is ready, you put him in. Right now, there's nothing. It's like a hopeless abyss, like that we're staring at unless Daniel Jones turns it around, unless a team turns around and starts winning a bunch of football games. I mean, we said it last year, like, if they don't take a quarterback and they have another bad season, they could be staring at a house cleaning. They could all
Yep.
lose their jobs. And right now they're staring dead smack at it. Like Joe Shane, Brian Dable, all of them. I don't care about these rumors that Joe Shane has been guaranteed he's safe because he was forced to take Daniel Jones. That's a bunch of horse shit. What does John Mara's guarantee mean to you? If
Nothing.
you if
Absolutely
you
nothing.
because if you embarrass him week after week, and it looks like this team is primed to embarrass John Mara week after week the way they played this past weekend. Hopefully not, but if they continue to embarrass this organization every single week and they play like they did and have a record like everybody thinks they're going to have now, you better believe that the outcry is going to be fierce, and John Mara is not going to be inhibited from making the changes that he feels need to happen, which might absolutely be just cleaning house. So they better find some wins. They better find some damn wins, or they are in serious trouble.
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to say, kind of on that subject, is just like, look, you look, I understand where people are coming from, where, you and I were higher on some of these quarterbacks and other people drafting. Clearly, the NFL was too. 3 went in the top next 6 picks after us. But I do respect in some sense that if they truly didn't believe in it, you didn't just take them to save your job. But to act like that is suddenly going like and meaning that Joe Shane is guaranteed another year was not the case. We're guaranteed another year if you took a quarterback. You would have totally bought yourself time to build. You chose not to go that route. So now you are trying to survive another year another way. You chose to tie that now to Daniel Jones. There's other ways you could have gone. Russell Wilson had a lot of interest going to this team. He requested an interview with us to come to this team, and we told them that Daniel Jones is our starter, and he didn't have a chance to start.
Our unequivocal starter, while the dude was still not recovered from an ACL tear.
Yep, we could have brought back Tyrod Taylor. And we would be much more excited about the idea of him coming in because we've seen it. We know he can run this offense. He's been in this offense for 2 years. We let that guy walk out the door. And if you finally decided, I like Drew Lock, that's who I want to go. Fine. If you were higher on Drew Lock than me, you, whatever, that's fine with me. If you truly like this guy, then give him first team reps. Give him first team reps. Give him a shot to be ready and compete for the top. They did not do that. And now you are going to be putting, as much as people say that he pivoted, maybe he pivoted in his head. I don't know. But the reality is he is going to be putting out his biggest mistake as a general manager week after week to embarrass him on national television and show how big of a mistake that is until he benches him, with the chance of potentially making that mistake worse with an injury guarantee kicking in, which his head coach clearly is not worried about because he's running back-to-back QB powers with his quarterback coming off an ACL and back-to-back injuries. So that's the situation we're in.
Yeah, a lot of people made a big deal about that injury guarantee. Like, oh my God, they would never risk that. And I never got any indication from the team that they gave a shit about it. And they clearly don't, or at least Brian Dable doesn't. So I think Joe Shane certainly doesn't. I think we can put that issue to rest. Like, they're going to roll the dice and see what happens. I don't think that that's an issue anytime soon. Anyway, they're in the boat they're in. They got the quarterback room. They got the team. They got go win some games. There's nothing else to say at this point. No, there's no rescue mission coming to get you guys. Figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. All right. We're gonna get going with the discussion of the running backs. Before we do, we have a couple of house cleaning things. Number one, by popular request, 2 things. Number one, this is my favorite shirt. So if you want to see it, this is designed to warn Giants Nation of what's coming from the Mara side of things and Joe Shane side of things and the side of, should I say side, from the segment of the fan base that, is wrong about a lot of things, but right about how Joe Shane thinks. I'll put it that way. He thinks just like them. So
a lot of those guys will be back after our Washington game who seem to be quiet right now.
Yeah, by the way, the gaslight game is coming. If there's any game where Daniel Jones is going to put it all together for that one last deep breath before the body dies, it's going to be against the Washington Commanders. So I'm thinking of buying tickets to this game. So I'm in the DC area, obviously. So I want to go see it. I want to go see
one of the wins of the year.
I want to go see the one last Daniel Jones hurrah. So get ready for the gaslight game if it may happen, and if it doesn't happen, God help all of them. The other bit of housekeeping for everybody who's here, this is very important. This is near and dear to my heart. It's actually a very serious message. Everybody go to NFL.com fan of the year voting, NFL.com fan of the year, to vote for Momo. Vote for Momo, NFL fan of the year. Go there. Anybody can vote. You can vote early, vote often, vote as much as you want. We want to make Momo the NFL fan of the year so that John Mara and Joe Shane, or whoever is GM when this is released, have the opportunity to sit face to face with Momo, season ticket holder Momo. So the way you do it is you go to NFL.com. There's the link right there, NFL.com/honor/fan of the year with hyphens in between. You register with your email and you vote for Momo. first name Momo, last name in mom's basement. First name Momo, last name in mom's basement. I don't think you need to do much else. Vote for Momo. Let's get him over the top, folks. Start the campaign. Spread it to your friends. Vote for Momo. Get him to fan of the year. All right. Anything else before we go on to running backs?
No, man, I'm good. Let's dive into it.
All right. Welcome to Matt and everybody else. Yes, thank you guys. We'll wait for you to go vote. The link is in the chat, by the way. All right. So today, our second position group. We were going to do this last week, but we put a little delay on it. This week we've got it down for you guys. It's the running back group. We did interior D line, running backs. Monty, this class is ridiculous.
It's loaded, bro. It's got, last year you had a lot of depth. We had a lot of guys. We had a lot of shout out Bucky Irving, my running back one, looking great already. But you got a lot of Bucky Irving type guys, but then you have the cream of the crop top. You got a few top RB1s in this draft. So I'm excited to go over them with you guys.
This class of running backs reminds me a lot in terms of how it's shaking out to the wide receiver class of last year. Like, you have super high-end talent at the top. You have depth. You're going to get, if not starters, you're going to get like really solid rotational backs deep into this draft class, like really, really high quality players. So, I mean, this is a really solid class, and it's unfortunate we can only do 4 guys.
Yeah.
Right. That's sort of the sad part of this. So we can only get to 4 guys because I'm sorry, 5 guys. And we're going to throw in a couple of guys that we feel are worthy of your attention as the as basically our guys. Hold on, I'm pulling up my list. You merged all these stupid lists into one file. I don't know why you did that.
It's for the draft guide.
Oh my God. All right. So what are we doing? You're doing number 1?
Yep, I'll do number 1. So we'll jump into this. All right. Number 1, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody at this point. Maybe if we did this before the NFL or the college season, maybe surprise people. But unless you're living underneath a rock and haven't paid attention to college football at all, you would know number 1 is Ashton Jeanty, who is probably the Heisman Trophy front runner right now. He has 9 touchdowns through the first 2 weeks of college football. Absolutely incredible player. 5'9", 215-pound running back out of Boise State. He was a 4-star recruit. He's a true junior, and he was a 2023 All-American. He was a AP second team, and he was a few others like ESPN and others first team All-American. He was kind of right on the edge there. If we take a look at some of his stats here, last year, he had 1,347 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry, 569 receiving yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. This is a great football player, folks. Like, one of my takes early on this college football season, before I kind of get into what I like about this guy, is Ashton Jeanty might be the best player in this entire draft. He may be the best player in all of college football. I know he's not getting that attention and might not get that attention because, positional value is going to bring down some of the hype on Ashton Jeanty. He's also not the, Bijan Robinson type that's, 6 foot, 225, Saquon Barkley type. He's a little bit smaller, but he is a hell of a football player. This kid is just oozing of talent. He is just extremely instinctful as a running back. He just makes everything look easy. He might not be the biggest guy in the field, but he definitely plays like one. He consistently shakes off tackles from defensive linemen, linebackers, cornerbacks, safeties. I've seen him times that get hit in the backfield, get down to like one arm on the ground, about taken down, shake off a defensive lineman and take off for another 15 yards. He is so difficult to take down. His contact balance is incredible. He might be even harder to touch. He has this crazy like jump step juke move that, it's second he's running, he jukes to the side and he's off running. He's so hard to touch. He uses his vision to really take over at the second level. He's also a really good pass catcher. I mean, he's not like a Christian McCaffrey level guy, but who is? But he is a guy who lines up outside as a a like outside wide receiver, like in the slot. He often even just starts there, and then they'll motion him into as a running back. Like he is very much a weapon where you kind of expect him to line up there often. I would say his biggest downfalls I kind of ran into is obviously, 5'9", 215. Not the biggest guy. I don't think that's the biggest deal for running back, but obviously, like, that's going to keep him from getting like generational tags and things like that the Bijan and the Saquons of the world got. I don't think he's the best blocker in the world. Definitely I would say a negative as a blocker right now. We'll see if he can improve that this year. And I would say he's a very explosive player, but he lacks kind of that elite explosiveness. So like when you're looking at like when you're being picky and looking at top of the line running backs, he's not quite that like super explosiveness you look from those guys. But he is just everything you look for in a running back. Sal, give us some of your thoughts on Ashton Genty.
This guy is ridiculous. Like he is a video game. When you watch him, I just want to go through his stats and like you went over last year's stats. I mean, he's productive in the run game. He's productive in the pass game. He's a true dual threat running back. So he impacts the game constantly, right? You can use him every down. He's not just a running back. I would agree that he's not the receiver yet that a guy like CMC is, but I mean, he runs plenty of good routes out of the slot. He runs a lot of good routes out of the backfield, and he's a legitimate threat. Like he's a matchup nightmare when he's running routes, especially if he lines up on a linebacker and a lot of times even on a safety. But just his production numbers are bananas, and I just want to mention these because for all his numbers last year, he's played 2 games this year, Monty. In those 2 games, he has a total of 459 yards on 45 rushing attempts. He's averaging 10.2 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns, no fumbles. Okay, listen to this. And the first game, okay, fine. Georgia Southern, he goes for 20 for 267 and 6 touchdowns. They're like, all right, it's Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
He has a 77-yard run. Next week, Oregon. He goes for 192 and 25 attempts, 7.7 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, and rips off another 70-yard run. He runs well in zone. He runs well in gap. He's a receiving threat. Even, he's showing it. I mean, the guy does everything. He's nuts. He's uber productive.
Video game numbers.
He's a video game. And when you watch him, like his yards after contact are just stupid. Like you mentioned, it was like 4.52 yards after contact last year. You know what he's averaging now?
What?
6.09 yards after contact in the first 2 games. That's just stupid numbers. Like, so he cannot come down.
Saying that's double most like good running backs.
Yeah, I mean you can't bring this guy down with like the first tackler never brings this guy down. He bounces off people when he jukes inside. He pinballs between the first few guys. Then he takes off to the next level and he pinballs off another few guys, and then he explodes. And you're right. I don't think he has like that. I don't think he has like that ludicrous speed, that high end. I think that's what you're talking about when you think he doesn't have like that ultra explosive step. But he's got
not
plenty.
Like Jahmyr Gibbs. Like Jahmyr Gibbs is a little bit more juice to him.
I can see that, but man, does this guy have everything else?
Yes.
If there's any con about this kid, and this is really nitpicky stuff, right? Like you said, it's the size. Like when you look at these premier blacks, the Saquon Barkleys, the CMCs, the Bijans that go like basically high in the first round, they're usually like 6 feet, 225, 230, right? They're big dudes. They could be linebackers. He's 5'9", 215. So he's more like a standard running back size, if you want to call it that. He's not like one of these big, tall guys, but he doesn't play small at all, like you said. And you can argue that the guy he's not the best blocker. I think that's fair enough to say. Like he's not terrible. I think he's a kind of like a willing, help blocker in the pass game and the run game, and he's okay. Like I think he will redirect blitzers when they come. He's not going to take on somebody head on like some of the other guys we're going to talk about and knock him down. But he I think will slow down a blitz enough for his quarterback to get the ball out or do something with it. So I didn't really view him as a huge negative there either.
He just needs to get better at it. Like you said, he's willing. He's a little bit smaller, which obviously hurts him. But like, I'll see him like kind of like dive in at guys to try to block them. Sometimes it's like that's just ugly, man. You got to keep your legs underneath you, and you're a strong dude. I mean, and we didn't even go over some of like these, like, we talked about this guy a little bit during our freak list episode. But to mention that, I mean, this guy squats more than 605 pounds. And the Boise State strength staff said he couldn't go any heavier because they're afraid he's going to hurt himself. He power cleans 340 pounds. Like, this is a strong dude. He could do this. He needs to improve. And to be fair, like, I didn't read off his PFF grades, but last year, it'll just go through it. 94.9 PFF grade, 94.6 rushing grade, 91.6 receiving grade, and a 59.5 pass blocking grade. So definitely not good there. But so far this year, 91.3 PFF grade, 93.9 rushing grade, 50.8 receiving grade. Hasn't really shown it that much receiving grade, but 70.2 pass blocking grade. So, like, I haven't watched him enough as a pass blocker. I haven't watched any of the all 22 on that yet. I've just seen him casually on, Saturdays. But, maybe he's taking that next step, which is really like his only weakness that I can really point out. So, he has a whole nother year to get. He was only a true sophomore last year. So, this is a special player. Just, last stats I have in PFF stuff, 82 missed tackles forced last year was 0.377 missed tackles forced per attempt. Pretty crazy numbers on top of that.
And he forces them in both phases of the game. Like, he had, I forgot how many he had in the running game, but he had something like 26 missed tackles in as a receiver. Like, he's just a missed tackling machine. Like, the guy's ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, man, he is an awesome player. I cannot say enough good things about him. Do you have anything else you want to add on him before we get into what we could put our grades on him or?
No, let's get into the grades. So, like, for those of you who paid attention last week, we're trying to come up with our own kind of grading system based on factors that have been verified by better sources. Let's put it that way. Guys like Bill Walsh, Matt Miller, and scouting of things that matter for these players. So we have individual categories depending on the position. So we have more categories for running back, and I'll list them off very quickly for you guys. Durability, basically just how well these guys play deep into the fourth quarter. Can they be impactful late in games, which matters for running backs? Discipline. So this is about guys who are able to, like, see the field, let their block set, and make sure that they follow the play as it's designed. Instincts, just sounds like it is what it sounds like. It's just running instincts, making sure that you watch a guy who has a good feel for the game. Receiving grade, blocking grade, basically pass blocking grade, contact balance, obviously, explosiveness. And then we have two grades that we're not incorporating in our total grading system when we average them out, but they're individual to the Giants. There's the Giants grade, which is their fit on the Giants, and then the Goon grade, which are tallying for the all Goon squad, for the real ass Goons. So Monty and I, for this one, I checked. We have identical grades up top to bottom on this guy. Like, I don't think there's much controversy here. We both gave him a 4 for durability, a 5 for discipline, a 4 for instincts, a 4 for receiving, a 2 for blocking, a 5 for contact balance, 4 for explosiveness, a 5 Giants grade, and a 4 Goon grade. Actually, you gave him a 5 Goon grade.
Our only difference is Goon.
I didn't see a lot of Goon, as much Goon as you did, but I saw enough. So this grading system is 1 to 5. 1 is not somebody you can take. 2 is basically like a
NFL
below average, like an NFL backup below average type player. 3 is an average NFL type player. 4 is an above average NFL player, and 5 is a Pro Bowl All Pro type talent. So each of these gets a grade. So our cumulative score was 4 of the things that matter. We both have a 4 grade, which is really high. That we're saying today he's an above average NFL player,
and it looks like he took another step. And we're not even grading off that yet.
Right.
So yeah, man. Do you if we want to go into a little bit kind of our thoughts in each one, durability. Do you have any reason you knocked them down to a 4 from a 5?
I gave him a 4. I gave a 4. I don't know. I thought you. It looks like you had a 4 also when I saw that. Yeah, I gave him a 4.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he played really well, wearing down teams up into the fourth quarter and all that. But he's a little bit of a smaller guy, and I've kind of looked into it, and he definitely had times where he got hurt in the second half and wasn't as impactful. So just because of probably more size reasons, I knocked him down just a little bit, even though play style and just the way he plays, I think he plays into the fourth quarter when he can.
Yeah, discipline. We both gave him 5. I think this just It's the way he plays the game. He plays it very, very solidly. He doesn't make mistakes. It looks like he's following his blocks. He's doing what he's supposed to out there.
Yeah.
Instincts, I think we both give him a 4. You can see the instincts on tape. Like, it's just he knows what to do. He knows when to take the lane in front of him. He knows when to bounce out. He has really natural instincts as a runner. Um,
Yeah, I think it's hard to have 5 discipline, and I guess I don't know, it's a weird thing to say. Sometimes it's kinda hard to have 5 discipline and 5 instincts. Not that you can have both those things. Those things do go hand in hand, but it's hard to grade it because when these guys are a little bit less disciplined, it shows like that, they saw this cutback lane and they made it happen. Like, oh wow, like he's able to like really feel this game. But Genti's really just kind of a one cut runner, and you see it at times where he'll, I saw one time had it was clearly a play out to the right, cut back to the left, and like saw it and went for an extra 60 yards. Like very good instincts. It's just, it's not quite like, some players we've seen in the past who are just like crazy. Don't How do you see that type instincts?
Agreed. We will give him a 4 receiving. I think 5 receiving would be reserved for, like, basically the CMC level. I don't think he's quite there, but
Agreed.
he's above average on an NFL grading scale. We both gave him a 2 for blocking. I That's kinda, I don't think he's a very good blocker yet. That may come with time. I think you have the prototype there. And the contact balance was obviously a 5, and explosiveness was a 4, and that's just
Yeah.
lack of a 3rd gear, I think. That's all it
Yeah.
is, right? But that's plenty there. So we both gave him a 4 overall grade score. That's our running back 1, Ashton Genty. I don't think he's gonna disappoint, and I mean, right now, he's definitely a first round pick. He's gonna be knocking on the door of a top 15 pick. Top 10 to 15 pick the way he's playing right now. I don't know if that's how this is gonna land, but the way he's playing as a dual impact player, it's really something.
Yeah, and as far as the Giants grade goes, it's not that complicated. It'd be hard pressed to find a team that Genty, unless they have their running back, wouldn't be a 5 for them. And we don't have a running back. It's that simple. He's fit in any offense.
Yep. All right, let's go to running back number 2 on our board, and we kind of adjusted here based on how we scored, and we basically ranked them based on how our scores came out.
Hmm.
So I think we thought we were gonna have somebody else number 2, but when we actually watched the tape and got into it, we have a different number 2.
Yeah,
So
mine was tied, but you had this guy a little bit ahead.
I was a little bit ahead. So our number 2 overall, when we went with my tiebreaker, pushing him to number 2, is Quinshawn Judkins, running back, Ohio State University, formerly of Ole Miss, 6 feet tall, 219 pounds, 4-star recruit. He's a junior. He was the National Freshman of the Year. I'll run through his grades quickly from last year. He had an 83.4 overall PFF grade, 87.1 rushing, 60.6 receiving, 43.3 as a pass blocker, 78 missed tackles forced as a runner, 0.287 yards per carry after contact, um, and a 3.21
Oh,
overall yards after
uh,
contact.
sorry, that was a mistype. It was missed tackles forced after attempt.
Excuse me.
2.2. My
So
my
three,
my apologies.
no problem. So 3.21 yards after contact. This year he's doing great already. He has a 90 grade, a 90.9 rushing grade. His stats are pretty ridiculous. Last year he had 1,158 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns. The year before, 1,567 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry his first year as a true freshman, 4.3 yards per carry last year at Ole Miss. He did have 22 receptions for 149 yards last year, and he had something similar, a little bit less the first year. Not much of a receiving threat. Um, when you watch Judkins, though, what you see, you know, round after round, I mean, excuse me, play after play, is this guy's just an all-around damn good running back. He's not like Genty. He's not really a dual threat back. He's not much of a threat in the passing game as of yet. But his size and his frame are more imposing, and the way he plays, he gets the ball and he looks like he was shot out of a cannon on every
Yep.
snap. He
Yep.
blows through contact at the line of scrimmage, and like Genty, has incredibly good contact balance. He changes direction easily. He's a very fluid runner once he gets moving in space. He has a nice juke move, and he powers through guys in contact. As a receiver, like I said, he doesn't do a lot. He doesn't get a lot of reps. I don't know if that's a function of the offense he was in, but when he does play receiver as a one-on-one receiver, he does sometimes flash as a guy who can be a threat. So there's something more to watch there. I wonder if Ohio State will use him there. I get the feeling they probably won't. Um, but that might just be he's not a natural receiver. He does have some mistakes in pass blocking. He wasn't the best pass blocker. I think that was the biggest knock on him that I saw watching him. But overall, as a running back, I think as a pure running back, he is probably the best in this class, is my opinion. So, what are your thoughts on Judkins, Monty?
Yeah, man. I did not think Judkins, I was going to like Judkins as much as I did. I mean, I knew about Judkins. Obviously, he was incredible as a freshman. He, you went over the stats 1,567 yards and 16 touchdowns as a freshman. That's freaking ridiculous. Absolutely insane numbers. And I think last year, him, taking a little bit of a step down and then transferring with some, we'll get into it, but some issues on the team at Ole Miss, he kind of fell off my radar a little bit. But going back and kind of watching him with these other guys and breaking it down, he plays football at a different speed than every other guy that we're going to go over on this list. Like you said, like my first note when I was looking is this guy was shot out of a cannon. Like he gets that ball and he absolutely fires to the line of scrimmage. We were talking a little bit before this, and you were asking me, what my player comp was, and I didn't have anyone ready. But I was saying the first guy that kind of popped in my head, and I don't say if this is a player comp, but just the thinking of explosiveness was Jamal Charles, just because he's so explosive when he gets the ball in his hands. And then you match that with being a bigger guy, 6 foot, 219 pounds. He has really good contact balance. He has like a nasty juke move to avoid him being touched. He's strong enough to kind of push the pile. He's not necessarily a guy who seeks contact. You see that with some of these other backs, but when he does get contact, he can break it. And one thing I also noticed is when he gets lined up one-on-one on like a linebacker, he has this crazy change of direction. He's so elusive that, it's very hard for those guys to keep up with them. The negatives that I saw that kind of came with it was, he had some issues as a pass protector. I noticed in the last couple games of the season. I didn't see a lot of effort from him in the first place, kind of watching with him. He did not show a ton of effort in pass blocking, but it really kind of broke down in him the last couple of seasons. He was letting up a lot of pressure, a lot of sacks, and and then even in the last couple of games of the season, like in the bowl game, he had a couple drops, which was uncharacteristic with him throughout the first being of the game. And it got to the point that, Dart apparently went to their coach, Lane Kiffin, and asked them to bench Judkins. And when he left and transferred to Ole Miss, he posted a video of Tom Brady basically saying, like, when you have selfish players on your team, it's like, I'd love to play against you because you can't have that on your team. So I can't wait to play against you. So there's definitely, some red flags there. So that's something to keep in mind, especially when we get to the NFL draft process and we really get this guy into the interview room. But he is a hell of an athlete and hell of a talent. So yeah, I am very intrigued by Quinshon Judkins.
He should have transferred to Georgia. He would have fit right in, right, Matt? Our friend Matt's in the chat. So yeah, I get it. I mean, I like some of this stuff. Just obviously, you don't know the personal stuff. I'm going to let hopefully the team sort that out come draft time. But my comp for him, and I'm curious if people agree or not. When I watched him, he reminded me a lot of Nick Chubb. Now Nick Chubb was a little bit of a smaller. Speaking of Georgia, a little bit of a smaller back, slightly smaller. But it's kind of the same kind of style, right? Like a guy who takes the ball and just explodes like through the line of scrimmage and bursts to the second level very frequently. I think I just like the way they both play the game. They're solid backs who follow their blocks but have enough juice to create on their own. You see this with Judkins where like down after down when they're handing the ball off to him, he's just going up the middle, following his blocks, bursting through, getting 3-4 yards up the middle, 3-4 yards, right? And or sometimes 7-8 yards, and he'll do that, and then they'll run these power sweeps, right? And he'll just accelerate to the outside, and his foot speed is remarkable. Like you don't necessarily see it as an inside runner because his natural quickness on the inside run is so impressive, but when he gets in space on those outside runs, he takes off. and he'll like rip off 15, 20 yards on a carry like that. So really impressive stuff, running both to the left and to the right. I saw that Matt in the chat put that, Genty, our previous guy, had like 28 yards per carry running behind his left tackle, like some insane number. And I saw from Judkins that he was able to kind of do it on both sides. So just an impressive runner. I think he's the best natural running back in this class. Um, I just didn't see enough in the rushing in the passing game for me to put him above Genty. And I don't think
Mhm.
he has like quite as much explosive play as Genty. So, but I mean, to me, he's a first round running back. I don't know how you felt about him.
Yeah, I mean, if everything checks out with him as far as, the red flags that we kind of heard about, and if, he's going to be in a tough backfield there in Ohio State, competing with Tremont Henderson, we're not going to be talking about today, but is another really, highly touted running back in this class. It's going to be tough for him. I probably don't think he's going to end up in the first round, but I would say he's certainly his first round talent.
Yeah. So let's get to our grading system. So we went through the categories, and so durability. You gave him a 3, I gave him a 4. Tell me your thoughts on his durability and why you had him a little bit lower than me.
Yeah, so I don't know. When I was watching the games, I saw them trying to kind of like kill the clock and run, run down. And a lot of times with these running backs, you see that's where these guys shine. You see them, wear down a run defense throughout a game and just start taking advantage of them. It seemed like the opposite when I was watching Judkins, at least from the small sample size of the games I watched. It felt like that he was, the defense was stuffing him and he wasn't taking advantage of a defense that he ran down. I didn't have a negative grade on him by it or anything like that. I thought he did fine. He broke, he didn't look like he was getting taken advantage of. He didn't look like he was unable to do it, but I didn't see a guy who was, really just pounding a defense at the end of the game and making them pay.
Okay, that's fair. I think I based my durability more on how explosive he looked even late in games. Like he still had that
Mhm.
burst, right? And I
That's
see what
fair.
you're saying. Like kind of like when you want the guy to just grind out tough yards and wear down a defense. I see what you're saying. I don't think that's necessarily his game, even though he is a power rusher very often. I just thought he was a guy that still remained explosive late in the game. So he was a threat to break off big plays late in the game. And that's why I gave him a 4. But I see where you're coming
That's
from.
fair.
Discipline, I think we both gave him a 4. That was easy to see. He really allows his blocks to form with just enough precision and timing where he sees his lane and he just bursts right through it. Like he doesn't rush anything. There's a guy we're going to get to next who may be a little bit undisciplined in that manner. But I thought that this guy was maybe the most disciplined back in the whole class. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought he was a very disciplined back, very north and south runner in my opinion, who would not somebody you have to worry too much about losing you yards by trying to make something happen. He can do that by just flying through a gap before defense can even get there.
Instincts, we both gave him a 4. Same thing. I think it was one of those things where it's like he's disciplined, but he still shows you enough on the instincts to like where if he doesn't have his block forming in front of him, I thought he was able to bounce to the outside and take off and create. And that's why I gave him that 4.
Agreed.
Yeah. Receiving, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 3. And I was surprised. Why did you give this guy a 4? There's not much there, but so tell me why you came to a 4.
So I gave him a 4 because I felt he offered. I didn't see anything that made me worried about him as a receiver as far as like his catching ability. I thought he had fine hands and he was good at catching the football. But kind of what I alluded to earlier, I thought his change of direction ability when he got one-on-one with linebackers is so dangerous and something I could really project to being a dangerous receiver at the next level. The way he kind of sets these guys up, gets a one-on-one, chops his feet, and is just can fire out of his stance and just leave a linebacker in his dust or even a safety. I thought, that's not necessarily, route running from a running back. You look for a lot more of that. He's not a guy who's doing running wide receiver routes when you line him out wide. But from as far as what you're looking for typically from these running backs, I felt he's a guy who can be a matchup problem out
I
of
can
that.
see that. So you're projecting the traits to the position as opposed to what you saw over and over again. I went more by what I saw him actually do, and it was just limited reps, and you didn't see a
Yeah.
ton of it. But I get what you're saying. Blocking, we both gave him a 2. He needs work as a blocker, and I think this will come. He has a natural size to do this, but there were some bad misses as a
It,
blocker.
it was an effort thing for me. I felt like he often just came in and gave a little shoulder. He went just like that, and he
Yeah,
wasn't.
he should be dominating at his size.
Yeah, and he did. It really felt like he wasn't giving effort as a blocker, which is a red flag to me, and was really disappointing to say.
Should have gone to Georgia. His contact balance, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 5. I thought his contact balance was absolutely elite. So tell me why you were a little bit lower on that.
Sure. So I thought he had really good contact balance, certainly like an above average NFL player. But I didn't feel like he was somebody who, got hit and then was like constantly like staying on his feet and getting to the next level and doing that multiple times throughout the play. I felt he was more of a guy who, could break poor back tackle attempts and was a guy who got hit and would get extra yards upon that. But I didn't think he was the Ashton Genties of the world who pinball off people and was almost impossible to get to the ground. I thought he was a step below that.
Yeah, I based this mostly off how he performed up the middle in runs. I thought he really was able to bounce off tacklers quite easily, and so I gave him a higher score. But I see where you're coming from. We both gave him a 5 on explosiveness. I think that's very obvious on his film. Giants grade, we both
Especially
gave
at
him a
his
4.
size.
Yeah, you gave him a 2 on the goon grade. I gave him a 3. I'm guessing you gave him a 2 because of the blocking.
Yeah, I gave him a block. I gave it because yeah, I felt like he was somebody. I thought blocking played a big role. It just felt like when he did not have the football in his hand, I didn't see a lot of effort. Even like being a receiver for the running back or for the quarterback, sometimes when it wasn't designed to go his way, like it was a chip and run out. I just a lot of a lot of times I felt like he could be giving more effort on a play, so I knocked him for that.
All right. Well, that's RB2. Judkins now at Ohio State. We failed to mention he's going to be sharing some carries this year with Travion Henderson, who was near the top of this list a year ago. So it's interesting
Mm-hmm.
how the running back room has changed. It's interesting how they'll mix it up over there in Ohio State. They're definitely contenders for the national title. I'm assuming Judkins is going to get about 70% of the work there, but we'll see. Um, Number 3. Why don't you introduce the next guy, Monty?
Yep. So I see some speculation in the chat. DK is correct. The next on our list is Amarian Hampton, running back, 6 foot, 220 pounds at the University of North Carolina. He is a 4-star recruit. He was unanimous 4-star recruit, I believe. He's a junior. He was a second team All-American last year. And going over some of his stats, he had 1,504 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns, 5.9 yards per carry, 29 receptions, only 22 receiving yards and 29 receptions. Pretty crazy. And one receiving touchdown.
Terrible
So,
quarterback play.
oh, yeah. It's that guy in the Patriots, pretty awful.
Held him back.
Yeah. But Marion Hampton, what I kind of said about him, he was a tough player for me to critique. There was not a lot that I could say that negatively about him. I mean, he's a bruising back who moved, I thought, pretty well for his size. He was a really quick and decisive player especially for his size. I thought he was a good receiver. I know you don't have like great receiving numbers there. And yes, he's not like a dynamic receiver, and I think that's pretty clear. You can see by the number, but he is a safety valve. Like when you think of the word safety valve for running back, he is always there for his quarterback. And that's probably why he was able to get all those receptions, even if he didn't add a lot after. And I think probably the most underrated thing about this guy, and we can go over the PFF numbers, and they don't necessarily line up, but I thought he was a fantastic pass blocker. He brought.
Dika's going to fight you on this, and so will the data. But I'm with you, actually. Go ahead.
So I thought he was a fantastic pass blocker. I know the data doesn't necessarily line up, but I saw him absolutely demolish people. And I thought what really brought me home is I'm seeing that the numbers aren't backing up, but then I'm reading up with like Brugler, and Brugler is talking. He's one of the best pass blocking backs in college football. So like when I hear Brugler saying that as well, I'm like, okay, like my eyes are not deceiving me. But he is an all around good football player. Um, I felt like he was somebody who always any single time you saw this constantly in his film. He is back pass protecting. He looks for a guy. He either demolishes them or gets a chip, and then he's quickly getting out and he's looking to find a soft spot in the zone to be a safety valve for Drake May. It's exactly what you look for a running back. He's not a guy you're splitting out wide. He might not be the most explosive player in the world. He might not be like the most elusive player in the world, but he just does everything well, and he's such a strong back. What's your thoughts on Marion Hampton?
I think he's a specimen. I mean, this is your big workout demon running back, right? This is the guy. This is the Saquon Barkley, like the Bijan Robinson size frame guys, right? Like the guy who's squatting bazillions of pounds, and he's a weight room warrior. He plays just like a monster, like a power back who really, I mean, he plays angry. Every rep, he looks like he wants to do something terrible to the next guy. Um, and we'll get to the pass blocking. I see people freaking out about it. And we're gonna be outliers here, but we're just calling it as we see it, and some of it is projection. We'll get to that. But I agree with you. I think he was a very decisive runner for the most part. For the most part, there are times where he probably waits a little bit too long for the block to set up. And some of that, you can ding him on some of his instinct there. But once he gets going, he's really physical. He wants to blow through people on the line of scrimmage, and he uses his strength and his leverage to knock people over. He's explosive, man. Once he gets past like that first level, he really can take off. I really like, there are runs where he just like shoots out like a cannon, and he's flying down the sideline out of nowhere. It's really impressive to watch. Like, you can't teach that kind of explosive ability. He's a tough runner. He's a good receiver. The thing about him as a blocker, and I would agree that he's not a creative runner. He's more of just like I'm going to run right past you or run right through you kind of guy.
Yeah, he's not a dynamic like playmaker type.
No. But the thing that stands out about his play style is he's so physical, and he wants to be physical, that even, I mean, as a pass blocker, I get it that people are worried about him missing blocks, and sometimes his instincts are not good, but he's trying to square people up. He's trying to knock people down, and he's rushing at blitzers. So I think that, I think there's some technique issues with his pass blocking, but I don't think there's an actual fundamental problem with his pass blocking at the next level. I don't think it's a guy who doesn't want to block. I don't think there's any effort issue. I think it's just some technique stuff, and he's strong, and I think he's going to be a very good pass blocker. I think I see what Brugler's saying here, so I'm with you on this.
I'll also say, just the stats, like obviously the grades can get weird on PFF. We'll keep reciting because, it helps to add context, but just going by the stats of him as a pass blocker, he allowed 1 sack, 1 hit, 1 hurry. So not somebody who caused a lot of issues last year. That's pretty mild, especially compared to the other guys when I was looking at their pass blocking stats.
Also, keep in mind, he wasn't blocking like a, pocket passer. I think it's a little bit different trying to be a pass blocker for a guy who's running around back there like Drake May was. So it's just a little hard. It's a little harder to gauge. He's got to run with his running back to protect, with his quarterback to protect him, So
at 97.3 was his pass blocking efficiency.
Right. I mean, I thought he was plenty good. So overall, I think he's a power back with a lot of, dynamic explosiveness. A guy who's big and strong, and just he is a 3-down back in my opinion. He offers enough in every facet of the game. He has some big play juice. He's definitely somebody who's going to punish defenses. So second round, I think he's a second round back, like a firmly second round back. Probably top 50. I would say he's a top 50 guy, but he's a really good football player. Let's go through his grading. Durability, I think we both saw that he lasted well late into games. We both gave him a 4. Discipline, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 3, and I thought he was a little over aggressive sometimes, and that's why I gave him a 3, especially with his blocking, and that's why I dropped him a little bit of a notch on the discipline. Instincts, we both gave him a 3. I think it was just kind of an average NFL instinct.
He was a tick slow. I felt sometimes, like I did like that I felt he let the blocks develop for him, which I thought was good, but I felt like he was a tick slow at seeing them while they developed.
Receiving, we both gave him a 3. I think kind of an average receiving NFL back, is how I look
He,
at him.
he is exactly what you look for from just a running back who is a can as a receiver. He's very willing, very much there, but he's not a weapon.
This part's going to piss everybody off. We both gave him a 5 on his blocking.
I thought he was a fantastic blocker. I thought he was a devastating guy, and you know, I know the grades didn't, but the pass blocking efficiency best up. Burglar feels the same way. I feel good about it.
So this is, to me, this is projection, right? This is like
Mhm.
the way he plays, his size, strength. To me, this is all about technique and a little bit of coaching. And this guy's going to be like a supremely good pass blocker.
Mhm.
There's projection in this.
I think he'll come in day one. I think he'll be a very good pass blocker. Maybe
Con-
not 5, but
at least an average one. At least an
yeah.
average NFL pass blocker. Contact balance, we both gave him a 4. You see that on the tape. Like, he's got very good contact balance. He forces some missed tackles. Explosiveness. I thought he was a little bit more explosive than you did. You gave him a 3. I gave him a 4. I'll tell you
Mhm.
why I gave him a 4. There were just too many plays on tape I saw where once he got past the first level, he was gone. Like
Mhm.
all of a sudden linebackers were turning around trying to catch this guy because he would blow right past them. So I thought that was a natural trait of his. What did you think about that?
I just didn't think he was a playmaker at the second level. I do agree with you that he's a guy who could use straight line speed and take off from guys, but he's not a type of guy where he has a safety bearing down to him that he can change direction, cut across the field, and still explode away. I didn't think he was a guy who was gone before the defense could even notice. I thought he was a very good, more than capable. He's on the high end of 3, low end of 4 probably for me,
Okay,
but
that's
I
fine.
gave him 3. Or
And
yeah,
Giants grade, we both gave him a 4. I think he would be a solid fit for the Giants.
yeah, we need a power back. Makes sense. He's a good player.
You gave him a 4 on the Goon grade. I gave him a 5. I just saw a lot of nasty in this guy's game. I enjoyed it.
That's fair. I mean, he was a nasty blocker too.
All right. So we graded him out as a 3.71. Both of us did. All right. That takes us to running back 4. I will introduce him.
And I don't think it's who people think it's going to be.
It's not who people think it's going to be, although I saw somebody allude to this guy. I got to find him here. Give me a second. Where is he on my list?
That's funny. D-Kit says he's better than 2 guys we mentioned, but
All right. Running back 4 on our list, and this is our list. Remember, this is not consensus. It's just what we think. Running back 4 is not who you guys think. Running back 4 is Kyle Monangai, running back, Rutgers, 5'9", 209-pound, 3-star recruit. He's a senior. He's a fifth-year player. He's a little bit of an older player, so that, for running backs, you don't love it. He was a 2024 Doak Walker Award watch list recipient. His grades from PFF, 92.5 overall last year, 92.2 rushing grade, 57.7 receiving grade, 60.7 pass blocking, 73 missed tackles forced, 3.64 yards after contact. He hasn't started phenomenally yet, but he had a big game this past weekend. Last year, he had 1,262 rushing yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, 5.2 yards per carry, 8 receptions, 78 yards. So when you watch Monangai, this is a guy that, I didn't expect this guy to be this high on my list when I watched him, but I thought he was so much better than the last guy on our list of our top 5. Monangai is a guy, every time he gets the ball, he just explodes into the line of scrimmage. This guy is your prototypical workhorse, explosive back. He is a powerful runner with a fairly low center of gravity, and he uses it. His short area quickness is nice. I think I heard the comp that he reminds people a lot of Blake Corum. I can definitely see that, right? He's a guy who gets the ball and in small spaces really has quick feet, bursts through small holes, and creates a lot of positive yardage. He bounces through contact like a pinball machine, kind of like Blake Corum did, right? You see a tiny gap, boom, boom, boom. He's between the guard, he's between the guard and the center, and the next thing you know, he's up against the linebacker and he's falling forward and he's got 6 yards. You saw that a lot on his film, right? Get a small little blocking lane and just bounce through 3 guys and get 6 yards. I saw him create a lot of positive plays out of negative. There were plenty of poorly blocked plays. Like the Rutgers offensive line leaves a lot to be desired, and this guy finds a way to turn those broken plays into either positive yardage or at minimum no negative yardage, and which is a real skill, right? You're not
Mhm.
hurting your team by taking negative yards. I think that's an underrated skill as a running back. He's a he's another guy who the way he blocks, dude. Forget the damn score. He plays mean as shit. Like, he's looking like he wants to hurt you on every block. He's looking for blocks. He's looking to
Yeah.
knock guys down, and he's not afraid of taking on anybody. He's taking on linebackers. He's taking on DBs. I saw the guy take on freaking defensive linemen, and square them up and just stonewall them. He plays with a crazy eye motor. He's high energy all the time. He's not a big guy. I think that will limit some of his play strength. He's not much of a threat in the pass game. He's not a huge explosive play threat, but this guy's a down in, down out, solid running back who is going to work his ass off for you and get you a lot of dirty yards and not hurt you. I just loved watching this guy play. So I was a lot higher on him than I thought it would be. What did you think about Manungai?
Yeah, man. I mean, you were definitely, when you watch him pound the table to get him on this list, and I watched him. I also enjoyed him. I didn't get to him today, but I really liked what I saw. I've known of him, but just watching his all 22, and I feel like he's the classic player that ends up going in these like early day 3, and then all of a sudden this guy is like a high end NFL starter, and you see that every single year. And I feel like with his age and him being not the what was his size? He was
5'9",
yeah, not the
5'9",
biggest.
215, 5'9", 209.
Yeah, not the biggest guy in the world. He's probably going to fall a little bit, but he's exactly what you look for. He plays so aggressively, and he does it in all phases of the game. He might not be at the most as a receiver, but as a blocker, he's a badass blocker, and he's exactly the type of players that we look for, that like just fight through contact and constantly get yards for you. I mean, he on 30% of the time he forced a missed tackle last year. Averaged 3.64 yards per carry per or after contact per attempt. Very, very good football player. He's a goon, man. Straight goon.
Yeah, and we might be a little higher on this guy than it's going to land on draft day because projection and all this other stuff. But I just love players like this. They pop on the tape. And one thing to notice, and this is something that we talked about when we had our episode with Matt Waldman, is see what these guys can create behind different offensive line schemes. And some of the guys we've talked about are behind some of the best offensive lines in college football. Not that you hold it against them, but it's a little easier to see the individual talent there. With Monangai, I mean, what you notice play after play is there's a lot of broken plays. There's a lot of, Rutgers being overmatched at the line by other teams in the Big Ten. And he just finds a way to create positive yardage. And I think that's an underrated skill, like I said before. So I really enjoyed his game. Um, in terms of player comp, we bounced a few names around. I mean, it's a lazy one, but like I said, you can use Isaiah Pacheco for play style.
Mhm.
Both Rutgers guys. I saw DK put Kyron Williams. I think that's actually a good one.
Mhm.
A little bit of an undersized guy who plays big with a high motor.
Yep.
These are the kind of guys. I mean, I don't think this is a guy that I don't think he can be a feature back. I don't know if he has the size and durability to be like a 300 carry per year type of guy, right? But he's a guy that in a good rotational system, I think he's a solid sharer of carries with another running back. And I would pair him if you have a more dynamic receiving threat running back. I think Monangai is a good back to pair with that guy, right? So like if you were designing a college team, Monangai with the guy who I'm going to list as my guy, who's more of a receiver, would I think be a very nice combination. So um, where do you see him landing in the draft, Monty? That's something I'm curious about.
I think he probably ends up as an early day 3 pick, and I think he's a guy who adds to, if you can get him on a team that is like a competitor and just needs a cheap running back. I think he's going to come in and he can be Isaiah Pacheco's, the Kyron Williams of the world, who is suddenly like this very productive running back you got for next to nothing in the draft and paying next to nothing, and is on a team that can be a Super Bowl contender. So he fits right into that mold to me.
All right. So let's go through our grading system for him.
Yep.
Durability. We both gave him a 4. He plays his
Mhm.
ass off all 4 quarters.
Yep.
Um, Discipline. Uh, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 3. Um, there were times where I thought that he was a little bit over aggressive at the line. Nothing major, but I think he
Yeah.
was average.
You watched him a little bit more than I did, but I just felt like
Yeah.
he was always finding positive yards.
Instincts. We both gave him a 3. I could have
Mhm.
gone
Yeah.
higher here. Could have gone a little higher here, but I think that's a fair grade for him. Receiving, we both gave him a 3. I think he's a serviceable receiver. Nothing special.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said it before, like a lot of the receiving with me is are you a do or you a do not? He's a do. He's not certainly not at the next level or the level after that.
We both gave him a 4 for blocking. The only reason I didn't give him a 5 is because I don't think he has the frame to be like a high impact blocker, but I think he does plenty back there.
Hmm.
Um, Contact balance, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 3. I don't think he bounced off blocks quite as well as some of the other guys, but
That's fair.
he did in, and I'm talking about at like the second level. Like he does really
No,
good in short area at the line of scrimmage, but like when he gets to the second level, he does get taken down.
yeah, that's fair. I might have just been more caught, oozing over his just how physical he plays, and maybe not enough to what his actual contact balance is.
We both gave him a 3 for explosiveness. I think he has average NFL
He has it.
explosiveness. Giants grade, you gave him a 5. I gave him a 3. Tell me why you give him a 5.
So, I mean, really, he should probably be a 4. But like, so goes into I think we need power back on this team. We don't really have like a true grinder. So, in that sense, like I give those guys a bump. And I bumped him 5 because he's a Jersey guy. Went to Don Bosco Prep. I gave him a little boost.
Oh my God, he played with Tommy DeVito. So we both gave him a 5 on the goon grade, and we would have given this guy. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we? No, yeah. On the goon grade, we both gave him a 5. It really should be a 50.
Yeah.
The way he plays, but this guy was the real ass goon of this class, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. Like Hampton gave him a little bit of a run for his money, but I thought this guy was right up there.
Hmm.
All right, so that's number 4 for us. We got one more guy in our top 5, then we'll get to our my guys. So why don't you introduce our RB5?
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of you are surprised we have not mentioned this guy. I know we're not trying to be like these hipster drafting analysts who are just putting people low for clicks or anything like that. Truly went into this guy, expected to like this guy a lot, and it's just he did not, look as good as I thought he would. And that guy's Ollie Gordon, running back out of Oklahoma State. 6'2", 225. He was a 4-star recruit. He's a true junior. As just like the last guy, we kind of knocked a little bit too low. The awards are there. He was unanimous All-American last year. He was the Doak Walker Award winner. You look at his stats, crazy stats. 1,732 rushing yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry, 330 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Now let's get into him. Let's get a little bit, what some of my thoughts were on Ollie Gordon. When you look at Ollie Gordon standing on the field, man, he is a specimen. He looks like he's chiseled out of rock. He is tall. He looks like he's like 6'4". I swear to God, when he's out there, he's 6'2". He looks like he's freaking like DK Metcalf to me when he's standing out there like running back. He's huge. And I think he's very elusive for his size. I marked down here. He looks like he's like a wild stallion out there. Like the way he runs, he's just so quick, and he's running so tall and so fast. And even though he doesn't necessarily seem like he always has a plan, he always looks good doing it. I think if he can become more refined, he has, great size and great speed that will translate to the next level. But my issue is that he needs refinement in almost every area. So it's a pretty big projection for me. I mean, like, um, big issue is he runs high, and that's not always a killer for running backs. Like a guy like Marshawn Lloyd is somebody who ran high in last year's class, but the issue is difference is Marshawn Lloyd was 5'9". This guy is 6'2", and when he gets hit low, he goes down almost immediately. And it seems like every defense watched film on him and knew that you go low on him. That's how he went down almost every single time. When he got tackled, it's because he got tackled low. He can be indecisive, I thought, at times as a runner. And he was a very, very poor pass protector. I thought he was a piss poor pass protector. I thought he did not, for as big as he didn't look strong. He didn't look in place. I thought he was an awful pass protector. That was probably my least favorite part about him. He's off to a hot start this year. 79.3 pass block grade PFF. Maybe cleaned it up this summer. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Ollie Gordon. What was your thoughts, Sal?
I went into watching Ollie Gordon's tape really excited because of the specimen and everything that I had heard about him, and just
And the
seeing him on
stats.
Saturdays, the stats, and just seeing like the highlights,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sitting here watching a lot of Oklahoma State games, to be honest, but I watched these games, and I like down after down, I was just left thoroughly unimpressed. I'll be honest, like and I think the stats bear out what I saw. So when you watch him like down after down, there are plenty of plays designed for him as you would think a guy 6'2", 225 is going to just dominate up the middle, right? Like he's going to bruise people and knock them over. And he doesn't. Like he'll run up the middle and he'll just go down at like the 2 or 3 yard gain mark. Like he's not pinballing, he's not running people over, no knee to the chest. There's none of that crap. Like he doesn't play as big as his size. And then you're like, well, where's all this production coming from? And then you see it, right? He'll have like 3 or 4 like lousy runs for like 2, 3 yards, and then he'll just run to the outside and he somehow gets the edge. And then he starts accelerating, and the dude has so much stride length. Like he just gets
Mm-hmm.
faster and faster and faster, and then nobody catches him. And like you're like, how did this guy get to the end zone? Right? Like he
Yeah.
doesn't even look that fast, but he got there, right? And then you look at the stats and the data, and it backs it up. So Ollie Gordon, out of his what was it, 1,732 yards last year on the ground, 950 of them, 950 of those yards were breakaway yards.
Yeah.
Okay, so more than half of his yards were just explosive play, takeoff, breakaway play yards. They weren't like the grinded out power yards that you would almost expect from a guy his size. So he's a big back who plays like a small back, is how I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't love it. His yards after contact was good, but a lot of it I thought was statistically buoyed up by the same thing. He would shake off a tackle on the edge or something and then take off. Um, but when he was running up
Yeah.
the middle, I didn't see the best contact balance. I
I
just
Yeah, I mean, to back up your point there, Sal, just kind of what we do. Like, yes, 3.71 yards after contact per attempt. Good number. Now let's go to his missed tackles, force per attempt. You saw all these were threes and the fours and around there. 2.38 missed
yeah.
tackles, force per attempt. Less than one every 4 carries.
For the guy whose calling card is his frame and his size, like that just is not impressive, right? And when I see this, like this is like it's like a warning sign to me. Like people are gonna love this guy to some extent because of his frame, and I'm sure he'll test well because he's gonna have good long speed. But the guy I kept thinking about watching him was Braylon Allen, like last year's Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the big physical specimen of a back who, like, when you actually watch him, you're like, he's not that good. Like that's what I was thinking about. I don't know what you thought, but
That was my exact thought, and it wasn't necessarily even Braylon Allen. My thought was like, this guy feels like every type of Braylon Allen type. He feels like Braylon Allen. He feels like AJ Dillon. He feels like who is that kid from Boston College we got back in the day?
Paul Perkins.
No, UC, who's UCLA? The anybody in the
Oh,
chat who has it? The Boston
uh,
College
I, I
big running back. I'm sure somebody remember, but he reminds me of like all those guys of the world who, have those guys, guys who could get like close to 2,000 yards. Andre Williams,
Andre
thank you,
Williams, that's the
DK.
one. Yeah.
He, like some of those guys got like 2,000 rushing yards, incredible college running backs. But then when you watch their tape, you're like, this isn't going to translate to the NFL level. And if it doesn't, it feels that way with me, with Ollie Gordon. I know Ollie Gordon is getting love though more than those guys did as like a prospect. I mean, Brugler had him as his RB2, number 35, one spot ahead of Marion Hampton. So, people like him, but I personally did not see it when I watched him.
Yeah. I wonder where he fits. He's not a great blocker. He doesn't use his size. He probably has to be in a committee because I don't think he gives you enough consistency to be a three down back. So you just kind
Mm-hmm.
of wonder what's his role, right? So um, let's get to draft projection. This is tricky because I think if you and I were grading him, I would give him a firm mid day three grade.
Yeah, I agree. I think he probably goes day two, but I would probably take him day three. I mean, he's a lower grade. There's a reason that he's here behind as our five. And he's only here. We probably could have found other running backs put in our top five, but when the Bruglers of the world, and when he's a Doak Walker Award winner, you gotta put him here to talk about him. And he's gonna get five because we don't think he's as good as these other guys.
All right, let's go through our grading. Durability, we both give him a 4. The one thing I would agree with about what you said is that he wore teams down. Like, he is physical and strong
Mhm.
enough where he actually can last the whole 4 quarters, which is a trait that is valuable. It was something that that Bill Walsh really valued, and so I think you can't ignore that.
Exactly. And we talked about how he's not like a guy who just pounds up the middle and gets yards, but I did think, as the game went on, this was kind of the opposite what I was talking about with Judkins, is I felt when you got late into games, suddenly after having to tackle this big ass dude for an entire game, he started to be like, "Oh, it's a little bit harder, and it's a little bit harder, it's a little bit harder for the defense," and he starts picking up more and more yards and just and finishing off a game.
Discipline. You gave him a 2. I gave him a 3. I didn't think he was that bad, but tell me why you thought he was a 2.
I just felt that he was very indecisive as a runner. I felt like he, had lanes, and it would, he would either wait too long until after it was already closed, or he would, um, decide to take it, but he could have decided to take it a second earlier, and he would have gotten more yards. I felt like he did not have any decisiveness in his running, and I felt like he didn't necessarily have instincts at the second level to make these runs huge. It was really just his straight line speed that really did that for him.
Um, so instincts, we both gave him a 2. I I don't think there's much else to say there. Like, I didn't see any creativity in his running style.
Yeah.
Receiving, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 2. I was not impressed with his receiving ability. Tell me why you liked him, and I'll tell you why I didn't.
Sure. So, I thought he was a can as a receiver. I saw him, one time even line up as a wide receiver and catch a slant play, and it was pretty good. I thought he caught the ball pretty well. I didn't see anything special, and I thought he could have done more to like give his quarterback help as a receiver. But I thought he was a guy who could do it.
So I'll tell you why I didn't like him as a receiver. He had a fumbling issue sometimes as a receiver. Like, there were some ball control problems, and he just didn't do much in terms of being able to generate separation and get production as a route runner. His yards per route runner were 0.89. That's pretty bad. Like, even for a running back, that's like really bad. Whereas guys like Genty, who are on the higher end of the spectrum, were like in the threes, right? They were like in the high receiver numbers. So I just didn't love it, but I can grant what you're saying. Blocking, we both gave him a 2. We both agreed this guy was not a very good blocker, and you would expect much more for somebody his size. Contact balance, I think we both gave him a 3. He's fine, but again, you expect more. Some of that is his size. Um, Explosiveness, we both gave him a 4, and this is going to be a little bit tricky. I gave him a 4 because of those outside runs and his ability to accelerate into
Mhm.
explosive plays and the breakaway yardage ability. Why did you give him a 4?
Yeah, I gave it to him for the same reason. I thought he had these long strides that he got, and when he got going, he was very, very explosive and was, especially for his size. I think I was trying to be a little bit generous. So I'm like, okay, this is a big dude and he's very, very explosive for his size.
We both gave him a 2 for a Giants grade. I don't think we either one of us love him as a fit, and
No.
his goon grade was also a 2. I didn't see that killer instinct.
Nope.
All right, so that's our 1 through 5. It's time for our my guys, and I was going back and forth on my guy. I think I've landed on somebody who I actually really like. Who is your my guy, Monty?
So people who, listen and watch this pod every week, this was a guy we actually talked about last draft season before he decided to go back to school. We had him one of our mock drafts and we had a lot of interest in him. Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. He is right up my alley of the type of running backs that I like. He was somebody I was really hoping would come out and somebody I was really interested in. Honestly, guy could have easily made this top 5 for me. He is a total bowling ball, pinball running back. He is impossible to take down. Reminds me a lot of like Javonte Williams when he was at North Carolina. He's just bounces off everybody and runs over everybody. He led college football in missed tackles forced last year with 96. He had 96 missed tackles forced. Let's see. That was, and on 292 attempts, that was 0.32 missed tackles forced per attempt. So really good numbers, and 3.42 yards per contact after attempt. Um, just a just an absolute bruiser at the running back position. And Texas Tech was very lucky that this guy came back for him, and I think he's going to have an incredible year. He's just the exact type of running back I typically look for. He doesn't give you as much as a receiver, but he can do it. He's a fine pass blocker. He can do it. Not anything special, but just his nastiness in the run game is what I really like about Taj Brooks.
Very nice. And before I give mine, I misspoke. I didn't mean the fumbling problem for Gordon, and I was more focused on his lack of yards per route run. I think my brain got rewired improperly there for a second. So
Mm,
no, he did not have a fumbling problem. But I'll give you my guy and I went back and forth on a couple of guys here. And my guy is another transfer, and it is another, I think, a better prototype of a big back who's a power back than what Gordon is.
I know where you're going.
And Damian Martinez, 6 foot tall, 232 pounds at the University of Miami. Damian Martinez is a transfer. He's a junior. He spent the first 2 years at Oregon State. Anybody who watched Damian Martinez last year loved him. He was awesome. He played with your boy DJ Ungalele, future
don't
WWE wrestler DJU.
don't say my boy anymore. I denounced him.
You denounced him.
Yeah.
Your Samoan goat. Poor DJU. Anyway, Damian Martinez was a force last year for those who watched, stayed up watching Pac-12 After Dark. My God, this kid could run up the middle and really dominate. He reminded me a lot of Chris Rodriguez, who ended up going, from Kentucky, who went to the Commanders. I just like the way he plays football. He had 1,185 yards rushing on 195 carries last year, 6.1 yards per attempt. Very consistent his 3 years in college. First 2 years, 982, then 1185. Both years, 6.1 yards per attempt, seven touchdowns, one fumble. His freshman year, 9 touchdowns, one fumble last year. This year, he's at 160 yards and 26 attempts, 6.2 yards per attempt. He has 1 touchdown, no fumbles. He is just a solid up the middle runner. He has some breakaway ability for sure. It's not the bulk of his game. He had 460 yards breakaway out of the 1185 last year, so he has some juice in him, and he produces some explosive plays. But make no mistake about it, Damian Martinez is your grinder. He is your hand the ball off, let him punish the defense up the middle. Really good contact balance. Got about 3.82 yards after contact last year. He was at 3.48 the year before that as a freshman. Right now he's at 4 after just a couple of games. But this guy is, in my opinion, a three down back. He offers a little bit in the passing game. I'm going to pull up his numbers, um, but I think it's mostly as a running back that I really like him. So as a receiver, what did he do last year? He gave not a ton, 11 receptions for 126 yards. Um, Let me see, his yards per route run were not good, but I thought I saw on tape there was a few, as out of the backfield, he would run a few routes, nothing special. But I think overall, as a bruiser, up the middle runner, a real larger specimen power back, I love Damian Martinez. So that there's my guy. He's primed to have a good year with Cam Ward in Miami as they knock on the door of the playoffs.
I'm a big fan of Damian Martinez. Using Miami in my online franchise, he's leading the Heisman race right now. He's a hell of a player. The one thing I'll say negative about Damian Martinez, and it looks like he's starting to clean it up this year. He only has 6 pass block sets so far this year, but he has an 82.4 grade so far this year with 0 pressures allowed. But over the last 2 years he had a 21 pass block grade and a 12.2 pass block grade. So really bad numbers. Hopefully he's on the right track this year. Just to add perspective to that, he allowed 6 pressures last year at Oregon State, 91.7 pass block efficiency. So that's pretty low. And then the year before, he allowed 4 pressures with a 90.4 pass block efficiency. So obviously, good start this season, but that's something to keep an eye on because that definitely could be something that will hurt him with I don't know, scouts.
So that's our 5 and our 2 my guys. There's some. I mean, it's worth mentioning the guys that didn't make our list because my guys are not really ranked. They're just guys we like. But
Yeah.
I mean, as we mentioned at the top of the episode, this is a crazy deep class. It's high end at the top, has a lot of quality depth underneath it. It's exactly what you want if you're looking for a running back. So a guy who didn't make our list, who was near the top of our list last year, Travion Henderson, who's RB2 in Ohio State. I mean, he was a monster last year. He had a huge year. I mean, injury held him back, but he's 5'10", 208. This guy's a stud. He's going to probably get less run and less workload this year. It's going to hurt his stock a little bit, but he's probably still a day 2 guy. A couple other guys, Devin Neal from Kansas is a very, very intriguing back. I mean, he's
Very
a stud.
explosive.
Yep, explosive guy. Trevor Etienne, I know he was hurt, or there was some weird suspension for a game or something at Georgia. I don't know. He's at Georgia, whatever. They get suspended for shit or not.
Travis's brother.
Right. He was at Florida before.
Mm-hmm.
Woody Marks, he's a little bit of an older prospect, but again, a guy like from USC. If you watched him this past weekend, I mean, he just highly productive. I think he's a 5th-year player, but who cares? Like you're taking these guys late day 3, and he's a highly productive back at 5'10", 208. And then like it's worth mentioning, guy Donovan Edwards, a guy that I think people are underwhelmed by, but as a prototype, he's very intriguing. 6'1", 212, the kid out of Michigan who was the second back behind Blake Corum. What makes Edwards intriguing is just that he's such a great receiver. He has explosive playability. He's a big speedster, but he's a threat as a receiving back, and I think that's going to find him a home on some NFL team. He's not a great running back, but he's a really good receiver as a running back. So I think he's going to be someone teams like. And we mentioned in our other episode, I guess a couple other guys, Nick Singleton from the freak list from Penn State, primed to have a good year. DJ Giddens, another really good player from K-State. And then a guy who I'm not super high on, but I wish I was more high on, is Raheem Sanders.
Yeah, he's a great athlete.
He transferred, right? Wasn't he in Arkansas last year? And now he's at South Carolina. 6 feet 230, big dude. He should play bigger than he does, and he doesn't want to play his size, but he's still another specimen. So there's a place somewhere for all these guys in the NFL. A lot of guys will be useful.
Did you mention Jaden Ott as well?
I might not have. No. Go ahead, tell us about it.
Jaden Ott from Cal, just another, I know DK mentioned him, but he's a really good player, really another explosive guy. So he's somebody to keep an eye on. And one thing I'll just say too, you mentioned Nick Singleton, but for anybody who didn't listen to our freak list episode, I'll just give you a quick rundown from that. I mean, he obviously Doesn't always have the production that you're hoping from this guy, but he's an absolute freak. Number 29 in the freak list, 23.6 miles per hour in the GPS in the soft season, 4.35 40-yard dash, 95th percentile, 4.18 20-yard shovel, 71st percentile for running backs, 10'1" broad jump, 71st percentile for running backs, 390 power clean, 655-pound squat, which beat Saquon's record 650. Also a track guy, was all county in the 100, 200, and 4 by 100 relay. So freak athlete over there, Nick Singleton, as per usual at Penn State.
All right, that's a lot of running backs. So we gave our 5, we gave our my guys, and we just listed off a bunch of others. It's a good class to need a running back. I think that's an episode. We have to go over some college football stuff before we conclude. So let's look. It's week. What are we at? Week 3 now or week 2?
Week. We're
week 3.
We're going into week 3. Yes.
Right. So let's look up the games. Did you get a chance to see any games that are worth watching?
I know we have the classic Colorado State this week, but I haven't really looked too much.
Colorado State. Okay, that should be fun. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to look. Tomorrow night, you got Arizona State, Northwestern State. Probably not worth watching. Sorry. Arizona hosting UNLV. I'm sorry, Arizona at. I'm sorry. No, it's Northwestern State at South Carolina. It's Arizona State versus Texas State. But Friday night, you have Arizona at Kansas State. That's a good one.
Yeah.
K-State's a good team, and Arizona has one of the top receivers in the country and one of the smallest quarterbacks in the history of football, Noah Fifita. I know a lot of people love Noah Fifita, but that's a fun game to watch. Let me see. Alabama at Wisconsin. D-Kid saying Oklahoma Tulane might be interesting. That's a 12 o'clock game. LSU South Carolina is usually pretty entertaining. I'm just scrolling through these. I don't think there's anything that's really catching my eye. Boston College at Missouri, if you want to see a wide receiver, we're definitely going to be going over the top wide receiver in the country potentially in Luther Burden.
You got the backyard brawl this week, West Virginia Pitt.
How can I forget? West Virginia Pitt, the backyard brawl with future Heisman Trophy winner Garrett Green, right?
Hell yeah. CJ Donaldson, future Giant. Another running back.
Washington State, Washington is always a fun one to watch. It's a grudge match. I don't see a ton here. If anybody has any input here and what they want to recommend, but it might be another one of these weeks where you have to go and just kind of look at players that you look for and just enjoy the game to see the player. There's a whole lot of nothing on this schedule. But there's a few games to watch. It's always fun to watch college ball just to see these guys. You might see someone pop out that you enjoy. So pay attention. Sunday, the Giants are playing. They're playing the Washington Commanders at 1 p.m. in FedEx Field. Still thinking about going to that game. This might be the final hurrah for Daniel Jones. There's a real risk that this could be it for him, or this could be his annual Gaslight game.
Who knows?
So, we'll see. I'll see if I'm there. I'll see what kind of luck I bring him if I go. Other than that, please follow us at He's a Giant Pod on Twitter. Follow Monty at Monte Christos at MONTECRI5TO. Follow me at Queens_Guy. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you watch us. Tune in next week. We'll be back next Wednesday. We have not decided what position group we're going to go through, but we're going back to defense. We've heard a lot of clamoring for cornerbacks, so that's an early entry here. So maybe we look at cornerbacks.
Yeah.
But we'll be back next Wednesday. We'll see you then. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.